The Winnipeg Jets have a major problem as injuries continue to pile up for the club, this time revolving around one of their key contributors this season, and it has major implications on the playoff picture and heading into the playoffs. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Hattrick HQ, but before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 72% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel, so if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening around the NHL and of course with the Winnipeg Jets, it's free. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's very exciting. The playoffs are right around the corner, KC, but before we get to that, they're only 26 days away at this point, but the Jets are being ravished by injuries at this point in time. We obviously covered Neil Pionk going down with an injury last week, and he is still labeled as week to week at this point. And now another injury, and this is a pretty significant one for the team. And this is from Murat Atesh. Good afternoon from NHL Jets practice. That was this afternoon, where Neil Pionk is still missing, and now Gabe Vilardi is also missing from practice and the team. And he took a puck off the face yesterday and had to go get stitches. And we'll see what Scott Arniel says. And Scott Arniel had a media availability. We'll get to that in a second. But now it looks like Alex Iafallo is going to take his spot. And we'll get to the specifics of the injury in a second. But you have a fourth liner who, Alex Iafallo has kind of moved up and down the lineup at times this season, but for the most part has played on the fourth line. He's now just being, pinned there on the top line. KC, do you think this is a thing that, the Jets can kind of weather this storm, or do you see this as being a real problem? Because I think things could get very interesting here very quickly.
Yeah, definitely an interesting call from moving a fourth liner to the top line. But when you're looking at a guy like Iafallo, he has contributed at times during his NHL career. So maybe it's just getting him up with that star talent on the top line will ignite a fire under him again. Will it have the same impact as Gabe Vilardi? No. I mean, this guy has been probably the biggest surprise for the Winnipeg Jets this season, and a great surprise at that. I mean, this guy, he has 61 points in 71 games played, all 71 for the Winnipeg Jets. Been an Iron Man this season, unfortunately, until this injury happened, and 27 goals, 34 assists. This guy has got it done this year for the Winnipeg Jets, has really been that guy who, at times of need, has gone out there and created a scoring chance, has scored, has, done everything. And it's just great to see him have this year, because a lot of people were starting to doubt him and doubt his ability. And he kind of came out in the Jets uniform this year and said, hey, I still got it, and I'm going to help get this team to where they need to be. And now going down with an injury is very, very unfortunate, because this guy, like you said, is a key contributor to this team. So losing a guy like this is definitely going to hurt for a long period of time. Hopefully not too long.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, he played in all 71 games, as you can see from Sarah here, this season for the Winnipeg Jets. And the first one he's going to miss is against the Washington Capitals, who, this is going to be a massive game. This is going to be a good game, a good matchup, and a real good test for the Winnipeg Jets too, because obviously first in the East versus first in the West, it's going to be very exciting. So it's going to be a test for the Jets, that's for sure. But like you mentioned, Vilardi is almost a point-a-game player. If you look at the rest of his career, he was projected this year to maybe get 50 points, something in that area. He already has 61, right? And, he's probably going to miss close to the rest of the season at this point, just because of the language they're using with the week-to-week. But in terms of the specifics of the injury, it's a weird one. And now he's joining Neil Pionk on the IR, of course, for the next, couple weeks at least. And the playoffs begin in 26 days. They are starting very shortly. And from Ken, you can see in the tweet below here, it's actually not related to the puck to the face that he took in the game against the Buffalo Sabres on Sunday. It's a different, injury that he's dealing with, which I thought was very interesting. And again, Alex Iafallo is taking his spot. But from John Liu as well, it's a freak injury. That's what Scott Arniel said in his media availability today. So for anyone thinking it was the puck to the face, he's missing a game because of that, I'm sure he would have just put on a bubble and played with it if that was the case, right? We all know hockey players, and we know Gabe Vilardi. Everyone's playing through something at this point in time. So it was a freak injury, and now he's missing, a significant amount of time. So this has serious implications on the playoff picture, and that's the next next thing I wanted to get to, KC, is, this lineup still very good enough. I am obviously worried, if I was a Winnipeg Jets fan, about, the chemistry. This is something that we've talked about. They didn't go out and make any significant moves at the trade deadline. They added some great pieces in Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn, of course. But what are you seeing from this lineup? Are you, scared missing Gabe Vilardi if you were a Jets fan, or are you okay with it? The chemistry is still there. I think that this is going to be a good test for sure, but I do wonder if they can weather the storm.
I think Jets fans are worried right now, and for good reason, because they're losing one of their top contributors, and it is going to hurt the lineup. But if you kind of want to look at this glass half full ish, if you want to look at it that way, I mean, it is 26 days away, or games away, or days away from the playoffs, so it is just outside of that range where we could see him come back for the start of the playoffs. It is week to week. If it is a injury where they're like, okay, let's rest this guy till the playoffs start because they're already first, they're not going to drop out of the playoffs at this point. Maybe you rest him and Pionk at this point in time and just take the hit for now, but then get fully rested guys when the playoffs start. I mean, if it was me in this situation, we obviously don't know the injury and the state of it right now, but if it's one to where if he goes out and re-aggravates it and it's something worse where he can't play the playoffs at all, I think you have to kind of let him rest up here for the playoff push, or for the playoff run that they're going to have, because you don't want a guy coming back 70%, hurting himself, and then coming back 50% going into playoffs. You'd rather him coming in at 100%. But getting back to your question here, I think this lineup can still get it done. I think they can win games. Do I think they can beat the Washington Capitals coming up? It's going to be a tough test. It's going to be a tough test. You can't bet against Hellebuyck, though, man. This guy's been on fire for the Jets this year. So the main reason that they're doing so good is because they're having success offensively and defensively, of course, but Hellebuyck just having an insane season as well. But I do think, looking at this lineup, they still do have a lot of pieces like Scheifele and Connor and guys like this who can get it done. But this is going to call on guys to have to step up here, like a guy like Appleton, Perfetti. These guys have been having solid seasons, but they're really going to have to kick it into an extra gear here now, especially Perfetti. He's on my watch list right now, because if this guy can pick it up and get into another gear here while Vilardi's out, this is a guy who could jump up to the top line for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that, like you mentioned, are they going to be able to weather the storm? I keep, using that term here in this video. I do think so. I think they'll be probably fine, but it is a big blow. This is a guy who's played in every single game and he's having a career year, right? So this is something that it's not like you're not going to feel this. You're going to feel this throughout the lineup. So you're looking at guys like Appleton, Perfetti, especially there on the right wing. What can they do? Do they move up in the lineup? Because Iafallo is just an easy one to, pick and place there on the first line without messing up any chemistry on the other lines, right? So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do down the stretch here. And speaking of down the stretch, this is the schedule for the Jets to close out this month. You play the Washington Capitals. That's going to be a fantastic game. That's going to be a real test for both sides, honestly. If you're looking at Washington too, they're like, listen, this is the best team in the West. How do we match up, right? So it's going to be an exciting game. Then you play the Devils, who, have lost their first line center for the season. They've lost two key defensemen as well for the season. So they've been kind of struggling at times, picking up wins here and there. So that should be another good game. And then you're playing Vancouver, another team that's, you could end up playing in the first round this year. So it's going to be very interesting. And again, this is the current playoff pitcher. So you're still, you feel pretty comfortable there in the lead there in the Central, I would say, but you never really know in the NHL. But there's only a few, handful of games left at this point in the season. But, I am looking towards who do you end up playing in the first round, because the wild card pitcher has become pretty crazy in both conferences. So it's going to be a pretty crazy finish to the season. But any final thoughts, KC, on the Jets finish of the season, what you're looking for from the Jets? Because again, this is a significant injury that they're definitely going to feel, but I feel like they'll be okay.
Yeah, well, their schedule is already a tough test in itself, and now losing a key player is going to make it even tougher. But I want to use your term. I think they are going to weather the storm here, and I think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people. Do I think that they could surprise the Washington Capitals in a potential Stanley Cup final, as some people are going to be claiming it when it comes up? I think they could. I think if Kyle Connor gets hot, Scheifele gets hot in a game, you can't bet against those guys. But, I mean, if you're a Caps fan, you can't bet against Ovi, too. What is he, like 8 away from the record right now? So this guy's going to be buzzing. But it's going to be a great game, a great final stretch of the season. I'm very looking forward down that schedule against the Vancouver Canucks. That's really going to be a one that a lot of Jets fans are going to keep an eye on, a lot of NHL fans in general. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Jets finish the season, and hopefully we can get Pionk and Vilardi back very soon.
Yeah, I think that's what Jets fans are looking for. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, if they are week to week and they're going to come back with only 3 or 4 games left on the schedule, I wonder if the team rests them. But that's something we're going to keep tabs on here on the channel, of course. So we want to hear what you have to say in the comments about not only the injury, but the Jets season so far. It's been a pretty crazy one. I think they'll be okay through this, injury trouble and weather this storm heading into the playoffs. But I think the most important thing is they're probably going to get these guys back for the playoffs, and they'll be healthy heading into the playoffs. So it's going to be a crazy finish to the season. And that game against Vancouver, it could end Vancouver's season heading into April, right? It could really put them in a tough spot. So it's going to be very interesting to watch. So we want to hear what you have to say in the comments. And if you haven't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything in the NHL and, of course, the Winnipeg Jets.